Welcome to Whiskey's a Journey. My name is Peter Faciano, and it's time for another whiskey review. Today, I got a bourbon coming at you. This is Woodinville. This is their 8-year aged bourbon. Just like always, let's go ahead and pour it, nose it, taste it, talk about it a little bit. Like I had mentioned earlier, this is aged 8 years, and it's a straight bourbon whiskey, 50% ABV. And the mash bill is 55% corn, 35% rye, and 10% malted barley. It's a limited edition release. I don't know how limited it actually is. My bottle is 7,150. 750 milliliter bottle, and I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, if you don't know, and I paid $129.99. And I gotta tell you, sitting here with this underneath my nose, there's a lot of sweetness and a lot of oak coming out of this glass. Let's get a little bit of a closer examination and see what this offers. Rich caramel, dark brown sugars, oak, and vanilla. The color on this thing is amazing, and I'm going to get to the entire process behind how they came up with this individual 8-year bourbon. But I got to tell you, the nose matches how dark this actually is. It's a sweet oaky bourbon with a ton of vanilla. And I say this quite a bit. When we're talking about a bourbon, the notes that you get on the nose and on the palate are pretty much the same. They're pretty narrow, but what separates a bourbon from other bourbons is the intensity of those individual notes. When we talk about typical bourbon notes, we're looking at vanilla, caramel, brown sugar, char, oak, honey, cherry. All of those are kind of very similar in a lot of the bourbons that we have, but I got to tell you, the intensity of the oak that's coming out of here, the vanilla that's in here, the brown sugar, and the caramel are very intense. Just sitting here talking about it and thinking about it and smelling it, my mouth is absolutely watering like crazy. Let's get this thing on the palate and I'll tell you what I think. Yeah, this is nothing but concentrated vanilla. There's a good cherry note that's coming out of here. Intense saturation of the oak. I think you're really going to need to like oaky bourbons in order to like this. All of those other flavors that are in here just piggyback along with the intense oak. Now that it's been sitting here for a little bit, I get tobacco and chocolate. The chocolate notes are a combination of milk chocolate and cocoa powder. I'll tell you what, everything that's in this glass, to me, at this point of the review, seems to be very balanced. Nothing is coming across as too sharp or too bitter or too over the top. One of the notes are not dominating any of the others. And if I have to pinpoint a spice, because there is a little bit of a spice coming out of here, maybe that oak tannin is a little bit spicy along with cinnamon. All right, that was the first sip. That was a lot to go over. So let me go ahead and get that second sip in. I want to see how the finish lasts, like how long it lasts. And there's something else in here that I'm having a hard time putting my finger to it. So hopefully that second tasting will reveal itself. Cheers, everybody. All right, there it is. If you've ever gone camping and you've made s'mores, graham cracker, chocolate, and marshmallow, there's a s'mores note coming out of here. Graham cracker, marshmallow with a little bit of char. Yeah, I think that's it. A marshmallow note. And maybe that's the char that's coming from the barrel. So let me go ahead and add some water to this and talk a little bit. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to talk a little bit about Woodinville and the process that went into actually developing this 8-year. And if I'm not mistaken, 2025, they're coming out with the 9, and then 2026, they're going to come out with their 10. So Woodinville is a grain-to-glass distillery established in 2009 by Orland Sorensen and Brett Carlisle. Apparently these guys were friends or are friends, and they decided to open up a distillery. It's up in Washington State, and I say up in Washington State because I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and I do believe it's Woodinville, Washington. They started distilling and then eventually released their first bourbon in 2015. And this 8-year-old was actually released this year in September of 2024. Prior to the national release, they had a distillery release. I think they had 500 bottles and they sold out pretty quick. And I think that was in August 7th of 2024. Sorry, August 17th of 2024. And here's where it gets interesting, and I have to refer to my notes because there's a lot going on here. So these two guys that established the distillery wanted to know how to produce the best bourbon possible and what barrels are going to produce that type of whiskey. They paired up or matched up or partnered up with Independent Stave Company, and they had 8 barrels to start. And those barrels included a number 1, 2, 3, and 4 char standard kiln dried barrels, a number 3 and a number 5 18-month open air seasoned barrel, and then they also had a thin stave barrel. And the one that is missing is the actual barrel that came out on top. They decided after 4 years in these barrels, the barrel that actually won out was a barrel that was 24 months open air season, heavy toast, and light char. And after tasting it, they realized that there was a little bit too much of a grain note, so they let it go for another 4 years. So if you put all of that together, 2 years of seasoning, open air seasoning, and then 8 years in the actual barrel, this is almost a 10-year-old project. And I got to tell you, if they were looking for intense notes with this type of barrel, they got it. It's well balanced. The color is amazing. The notes on the nose and on the palate are very saturating, very dark, very deep, and rich notes. So Orland and Brett, congratulations. To me, at least my palate, you have succeeded. This is a really good tasting bourbon. So now that the water has had a chance to do its thing, let's go ahead and see how this reacts with the water. A lot more oak is coming out. I get a good amount of cherry and vanilla, and all of those dark notes are still there. The brown sugar, the caramel, the vanilla. I would say there's a little bit more spice that's coming through, more along the lines of a black pepper or a cinnamon, but nothing over the top. All right, let's go ahead and get it on the palate. Yeah, first reaction, I wouldn't add water to this. Too much spice. It threw off the balance of all of the notes that were in there. It is now leaning a little bit too dry and over oaked. Cherry, vanilla, milk chocolate, tobacco, leather, all of those notes are still there. They're just not as intense. They taste watered down, and they're not in a cohesive or a balanced state. So going forward, I do not think I would put water into this. I would drink it as is. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's nice and balanced. They have good, dark, deep, rich, saturating flavors. I love the cherry, love the vanilla, love the amount of oak that's coming through. All around, it's very good. So let's go ahead and get on to the score. If you're new here, I rate everything out of 5 stars. This is gonna rank up there pretty high. I was actually going to do a comparison of the Russell's Reserve 15 alongside this. I think it is that good. Probably one of the better bourbons that I've had this year. And I do think at the end of the year, it's definitely going to be in the running for one of my top whiskeys of the year. That's heavy praise. I actually live around the range of 3.5 to like 3.95, but this I think is something special. I'm gonna put this one up there at 4.25, might even put it at a 4.5. There's just something about it that hits my palate just right. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm actually gonna settle in on a 4.5. I think this is fabulous stuff. Even at the price, $129, $130, I think it's worth it. I'd be curious to hear from anybody that has had anything from Woodinville, and if you've had the 8-year, let me know what you think of it. This is the second to last video in October. And if you're not familiar with this, I do have an October giveaway happening. If you're interested in that and you're interested in winning a 2-ounce sample of this, go ahead and read the rules to that giveaway in the description below. Like, subscribe, share, do all those things that YouTubers ask you to do. Turn on that bell notification because I produce videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's all I got for you today. Wherever you're at in your journey, I hope you're enjoying it, and then we'll talk to everybody later. Bye. I don't know what to say. It's a really good bourbon.